Hi, in this video I will give you a brief introduction to the chi-square tests. The chi-square test is a test you use when both the dependent and the independent variables are categorical. You often see the chi-square test written as the Greek letter chi squared. So in our table we will look up here to find where both the dependent and the independent variable are categorical. And as you can see, we have several tests to choose between, but we will focus on the chi-square test in this video. I will show you an example. I want to know if there is a difference between men and women in blood pressure. We have used this example previously as well, but now if you see in my table here, my raw data file, you can see that the blood pressure is not now the continuous. It is categorical with three different categories: high blood pressure, or normal blood pressure, or low blood pressure. So what I want to do is to organize my data into a table like you see here. Here is another example. Here I have a questionnaire where I've asked for the gender, and I have some statements like I eat healthy, I exercise, I care for my health, and so on. And I want my respondents to answer whether they strongly agree, somewhat agree, neither agree or disagree, or somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree on each of these statements. So here the gender, that is the independent variable, and the dependent variable is the response categories for each of these statements. So I will now use this example to show you how to do a chi-square test in Excel. So in the previous slide I showed you my questionnaire. In this table I have organized the responses into a table like this. So I have the two groups, the women and the men, and I have how many respondents who have either said they strongly agree or disagree on this specific statement. We need to remember now about the null hypothesis. So if you haven't already seen the video on hypothesis testing and p-values and significance level, I encourage you to do that. As a quick reminder, the null hypothesis is that you say that there is no difference between the two groups. So there is no difference between men and women in whether they eat healthy, for example. And the alternative hypothesis is that there is a difference between men and women. So these values here, that is what I have observed. That is the responses on my questionnaire. So what I need to do now is to make a table which will be my expected table. And my expected table is based on the null hypothesis, that there is no difference between those two groups. And this means that we will have 14% of both men and women who strongly agree on the statement. So this number here, 14, that is actually only the 26 divided by the total number, 191. And now I need to transfer this from percentages into real number. So if you see down here, women who strongly agree, I have 13.34 women who strongly agree. Of course, there's nothing like 13.3 women, but if my null hypothesis were true, which is what I expect, and what I'm trying to reject actually, but if it is equal between women and men in this statement, I would have 13.3 women and 12.66 men who strongly agree. And the 13 and the 12 is actually the same number, but you can see that we have 98 women in total in the group and 93 men. So we have fewer people in the men group. So actually this number 13.34, that is 26, which is the total number of people who strongly agree, times 98, which is the total number of women, divided by 191, which is the total number. So this will give me 13.34. So I can do this for the whole table on the bottom here, which will then be my expected table. Now I am ready to do the chi-square test in Excel. So as you can see here, I have typed the function for the chi-square test, and in blue we have the actual range, which is in my Excel file. It's the cell C3 till G4. And I have the red numbers, which is cell C15 till G16. That is the expected range, the null hypothesis range. So when I press enter here, I will get this number. And this is my p-value. So this proves that there is no difference between men and women. Well, actually, it doesn't really prove that there is no difference, but I cannot reject my null hypothesis. So I can't say that there is a difference between the men and the women. The p-value is much higher than the significance level. This was a brief introduction to the chi-square test. If you want to understand this in more detail, or you want to know how to calculate the chi-square value, I refer you to some of my other videos.